What do Star Wars, The Hunger Games, and Harry Potter all have in common? They each tell the story of a group of rebels who banded together to create a better future. To everyone attending the Inspired Learning Convention, this keynote is a welcome message to the resistance. Attendees recognize that today's students need new learning experiences that motivate and inspire, connect to the world beyond the walls of the school, present challenging problems, and encourage the design of creative solutions. This event is a call to action. Attendance signifies a willingness to implement a new vision of learning. So here we go. This video is the thinking behind the design of a keynote, because the Mendon-Upton School District asked that the session serve as a call to action and also help to frame a day of hands-on learning. It was designed as an experience rather than a traditional lecture. Using GEE's 2015 framework of the design of learning experiences, this keynote should demonstrate 4 key tenets: a clearly articulated goal, meaningful action on the part of the learner, someone to manage the attention of the learner so that they notice the important parts, and an overall good design. The ultimate goal of this keynote is to ensure that all participants have a common experience on which to base their conversations for the remainder of the day. They will complete hands-on activities and make personal connections to new ideas. Throughout the keynote, I will assume the role of both speaker and guide, helping participants to make observations along the way. Hopefully, in following the story arc of the hero's journey, I have created what GEE would consider a well-designed experience. According to GEE, video games serve as exemplars of well-designed learning experiences. As such, this presentation has been created as a playful, problem-solving experience that will help participants to notice the tenets of inspired learning environments. To balance cognitive demands with the fun and excitement of being at a convention, a rebellion theme forms the story of the keynote. Though Turkle 2011 inferred that individuals may be more alone than ever because of the ubiquitous presence of mobile devices, those same tools can help educators form community connections with like-minded individuals from other schools and districts. This rebellion is about helping educators to fight against their own mental image as well as those of their colleagues. They have to work against the way we always did it and counter our ideals about what school should look like versus what it could become. So what does school look like? In this first activity, participants will have 60 seconds to draw as many images as they can to represent the concept of school. The purpose is to have them articulate their mental models and make them concrete. Bandura 1984 explains that individuals draw on past experiences to interpret new learning. Oftentimes, educators form conceptions of student learning while bound in existing beliefs, particularly when it comes to technology. As a result, new experiences are often just digitized versions of traditional practices rather than completely new conceptions that take advantage of new affordances. The goal here is for participants to acknowledge their preconceptions so that we can collectively build new mental models over the course of the day. Too often, particularly in EdTech conferences, there is an oversimplified origin story of the American public school system: the factory model. These next few slides help to frame the complexity of the idea so that we can have a deeper conversation of our shared identity and forge a path ahead. Ultimately, I want them to understand that our identity as educators today has been formed by the events and theorists of the past. According to Erickson, 1959, identity formation is continuous throughout an individual's lifetime and intrinsically connected to their social, psychological, and physical development. Since most of us grew up within the institution of public education, we should understand how the experience has shaped our identities as educators. However, as researchers Collins and Halverson 2010 note, digital technologies fundamentally threaten the systems and structures on which schools and educators base their identities. Learning can now occur anywhere, at any time, and from any other person. So we have an education system that evolved and became institutionalized in a pre-digital era. However, the world looks different now, and we have to combat the tenets on which we formed our mental models about what school and learning should look like. Today's students need more Dewey and less Thorndike. They need to learn how to learn. Herein lies the challenge. We all have these entrenched mental models. We cannot deny our history. But as Ted Dintersmith said in his new book, What School Could Be, instead of trying to do the same things better, we need to try to do better things. In no other profession do you observe the practice for over 17 years before becoming a practitioner. Tyack and Cuban refer to this as the entrenched grammar of school. We're now trying to break that grammar. The audience needs to know that I have to combat the way we always did it, and they need to do it together. However, as Dr. Berner explained, imagination is formed by culture. Nothing explains this idea more clearly than the Jetsons. They could imagine flying cars, talking toasters, and life in outer space, but this is all that they could envision for the future of education. If the creators of the Jetsons could not imagine anything more spectacular than robots and chalk, how might we all envision the future of school? The current system of school was designed to meet the needs of an industrial era. Shouldn't there be a new system for this new world? In this next activity, participants will describe their most inspired learning experience. What made it inspiring? What facilitated the learning? In a study from the European Union, Katia, Ferrari, Alamutka, and Puni examined the need for change in response to the innovation era. They viewed the idea of creativity as a cross-curricular skill, one that could cut through the silos created by the institution of education. They argued that innovation could result from viewing creativity as a system of change. So on this quest for inspired learning, one challenge is for us to restructure learning around the ideas of collaborative creativity and inquiry. The challenge with this is that creativity requires divergent thinking, seeking out multiple solutions to any given problem. But this presents a challenge given our history of conditioning to seek out the right answer and find that silver bullet solution. Changing imagination and beliefs about what could be possible presents an enormous challenge. However, what if there was a way to scaffold thinking and develop a shared approach? McLeod and Sharesky attest that 4 big shifts can help teachers to envision a new conception of learning: a focus on deeper learning, advocacy for student agency, opportunities for students to learn in an authentic context, and technology infusion. So what do these shifts look like in practice? Since the intent of the convention is for participants to get ideas that they can take back to their classrooms, this next part of this keynote experience is intended to allow them to practice making observations of other learning experiences and to notice the role of the 4 big shifts. The goal is to help them imagine a future that they can enact within their new community. Resnick 2007 explains that learning cycles through a progression of imagine, create, play, share, reflect, and then imagine again. Participants will complete that same cycle as they interact with 3 classroom examples via video. They will imagine what's possible, create their own ideas that they might take back to their community, share with each other, reflect on their observations, and imagine again. Though not shown in this video, participants in the keynote will complete a See, Think, Wonder thinking routine from Project Zero to help them notice the key tenets of inspired learning as they watch 3 videos from 3 different classrooms, 1 elementary, 1 middle, and 1 high school. The goal is for them to identify elements that could help them articulate their new vision with their community back at school. Guy 2008 describes the need for everyone to have an opportunity to learn, the potential to experience a low-threat, low-risk environment that ultimately results in a high intake. This rebellion is not about fighting alone. It is about imagining a new vision for school that brings about even more people into the learning community. This last challenge asks participants to reflect on what they have learned so far and envision an opportunity for improvement that they could not only execute in just 90 seconds, but also use to bring another colleague into the rebellion. Rebellions do not happen overnight. In fact, McLeod and Sharesky advocate for incremental change along a continuum from where we are to where we could be. The ultimate goal is to use the 4 big shifts of deeper learning, student agency, authentic context, and technology infusion to create the conditions for inspired learning. As part of a 2013 talk in Edutopia's Big Thinker series, Henry Jenkins raised the question of what could Dumbledore's army do if armed with today's technology? That single comment stuck with me and ultimately served as the inspiration for this keynote. This keynote is about coming together as a band of rebels because it is far easier for a community to innovate than a single person. Nothing illustrates this idea better than the rebellions mentioned and the start of this talk. In the story of Harry Potter, Dumbledore's army formed because the students felt as though they were not getting the skills that they needed for the real world from their institutionalized education. They knew that it would take more than just Harry to combat the Dark Lord. Think about your own students. They are trying to form an army. They are trying to make sense of their new world and build the skills that they need for success. But just like how Harry and Hermione needed Dumbledore and Professor McGonagall, your students need you. And in the Hunger Games, the resistance fought for equity against the Capitol. Our students are growing up in a new society, one that will be characterized by a fusion of biology, technology, and genetics at an exponential rate of change. Klaus Schwab, CEO of the World Economic Forum, argues that with these advances, we need to ensure that the world is both human and humane. With the rise of these new forces, it will become increasingly important to maintain balance. As we learned from the most recent Star Wars, the light force and the dark force are just 2 perspectives of the same issue. Only when the forces for good and evil are in balance can the empire survive. The same thing will happen in education with the rise of new technologies, artificial intelligence, machine learning, robots, and so much more. Jenkins and Turkle discuss the humanity of technology, how new experiences can make us feel out of balance between machines and humanity. But like the Force, it is about perspective. This rebellion is not about fighting against colleagues or abandoning old ideas. It is about looking for a new force and a new way forward. To end this keynote, I am returning to the last of Guy's tenets of great learning experiences. They must be well designed. As such, I have used the hero's journey as both a guiding principle throughout this talk and now as a means to create a conclusion. I will explain how all of us joined the rebellion from the ordinary, institutionalized world of school, until one day we received a call to adventure. Maybe it was technology, maybe it was the need to better engage students, maybe it was recognizing a desire for more creativity. Something made each of us want to leave the familiar and embark on this journey, myself included. Maybe the first time that the audience was called to action, they were not ready to deviate from the institution of school. Maybe they are coming to the convention because they are still hesitant. Here is the critical thing to remember. Today's students need them. The students deserve a chance to become inspired. Joining the rebellion could feel unsettling. Teachers who embark on this quest are entering a new world of student control and technology infusion. The way we did things is always lurking. There will be tests and trials. Things may not work out at first, but I want them to remember that the goal of this event is not necessarily to go and slay the twatty the way we did it on their own. It is about joining a community of change agents. Because every great rebellion begins with a band of rebels. This event gives them license and permission to ask questions, become curious, engage their imaginations, and seek out opportunities. Their goal is to build relationships and join a community dedicated to inspired learning.